What's going on, guys? Ted from Immersion here. And on this week's D&D Weekly Update, we don't have a whole lot of stuff. A lot of weird articles have come out. And by weird, I mean, like, things by Forbes. There's been articles about Dungeons & Dragons. This is similar in the vein of that D&D is cool again article, but kind of, a little bit different. As well as some interesting stuff that happened at TwitchCon regarding Dungeons & Dragons, some cool, another live show, costumes and things like that, as well as the Icons of the Realm Storm King's Thunder minis came out, and that's actually probably the most exciting part. So if any of that sounds interesting, we're going to cover the past 2 weeks, because I missed it in the middle there, so anyway, stay tuned. So, let's jump right in. We've got a Sage Advice for September 2016. So let's see what we've got. Can a bard retrain spells through magical secrets? It can be only replaced by a bard spell, not by a by any other spell. Does a druid's elemental shape limit to the 4 creatures? Yes, it does, because that's what it says. When a monk deflects missiles, what is the damage of the attack? If you throw it back, it's your martial arts damage. I think it actually says that, but... for sneak attack, if your ally... This is a big one. If your ally is within the sneak attack nomenclature in the player's handbook, says when you have an ally within 5 feet. Me personally, I think it would make sense if it was an ally threatening the opponent, so a polearm user 10 feet away would still count. According to this, no, it does not. Yes, someone else can wield your packed weapon if you are a warlock, but once they put it down, then it disappears. If you have the charger feat, can you make your charge attack when your mount takes the dash action? No, it has to be you. Do you have to take the bonus action immediately, or could you move with Great Weapon Master? This is when you kill a creature or get a natural 20, you get a bonus action attack. You can use it whenever you want on your turn. It is a bonus action. Basically, this next question, if you deal damage to a target with your reaction due to an opportunity attack or something similar, does that halt their movement? No, it does not. They can still keep moving, unless you have something like Sentinel, which stops them in their tracks. If I'm invisible and I shoot an arrow at a target, is hiding again an action? Without a special ability, hiding in combat requires a hide action, so even if you are invisible, they can still shoot at you. So basically, I don't know, it's hard to determine how to deal with invisibility in this edition. So if you're invisible, technically, all of the attacks, your opponent is basically treated as blinded. You have advantage on attacks against them, they have disadvantage on attacks against you, but they're technically not hidden, because you'd have to use the hide action. You'd have advantage on the check to hide, because you are invisible, and then they would need to make a perception check to see you, but if you move, they can't see where you're moving to. So if they move away, wouldn't you technically be shooting at the same spot, not at where they went? It's always a little tricky. This is a conversation that I like to sit down with a dev and have out as a conversation, not as like a question and answer session. If a target is grappled, yes, they can still attack. Grappling, all it does is put your speed at 0. It doesn't actually do that much. A lot of creatures have the ability where if you're grappled, you're also restrained. But as far as combat goes, grappling just knocks the creature's speed to 0. Other than that, they can do whatever they want. Spellcasters prepare spells not all at once. No, you have to prepare them all at the same time. Do you always know the effect of the spell you're under? The spell will say whether or not you know you're under the effect of it. Obviously, Fireball and Cure Wounds. Command forces you to do something you didn't intend. But things like Charm, certain spells are more subtle, yet you become aware, like Charm Person or Detect Thoughts. So Suggestion, surprisingly. Some spells are so subtle that you might not know you are ever under the effects. A prime example is the Suggestion spell. Assuming you fail to notice the spellcaster casting the spell, you might simply remember the caster saying, "The treasure you're looking for is in here. Go look for it in the room at the top of the next tower." You failed your saving throw and off you went to the other tower thinking it was your idea to go there. You and your companions might deduce that they were beguiled if evidence of the spell is found. But basically, discovery usually comes through the use of Arcana Investigation, insight, perception, or detect magic. Is the damage dealt by a beast from conjure animals considered magical? No, it is not, unless the spell says otherwise. Can the familiar conjure with Find Familiar use the help action? Yes, it can. Does the familiar count as an ally for the purposes of sneak attack? Yes, it does. Is the sentence of suggestion in the suggestion spell the verbal component, or is the verbal component separate? They are separate. Can an unseen servant act as an ally for sneak attack? No, it cannot. Whenever you cast Wish, do you always have a 33% chance of never casting it again? If you duplicate a spell of level 0 through 8, there's no detrimental effects. However, if you do anything other than that, it can have the 33% chance where you don't get to cast it again. The Mezzaloth exhales toxic fumes that can choke and kill a crowd. However, it's Cloud Kill. Oh god, sorry. Is listed under innate spellcasting. Because of that, would a paladin's aura of warding resist it? Yes, because Cloud Kill is a spell. My fighter attacks a creature with a magical longbow and non-magical arrows. Is the attack magical? The attacks made by a magical ranged weapon are magical, even if the ammunition isn't. This point was clarified in the errata of the Dungeon Master Guide. For the Hat of Disguise, how do I set the spell save DC for Disguise Self? Use your spellcasting modifier to set the DC. If you don't have a spellcasting modifier, use your proficiency bonus to set it. This builds on the rule on page 141 of the DMG under spells. So clarification on a couple of Sage-related questions. 2 weeks ago, Shelley Masanoble, Greg Tito talked to Ben Cameron and his experience of running D&D for kids as well as games for adults. And on the lore you should know, they talk about Chris Perkins and Matt Cerny talk about the Feywild. So that was from a couple weeks back. Neverwinter, the Storm King's Thunder update is going to be coming to consoles on October 18th. So if you're playing on Xbox One or PS4, you can look forward to that. Monsters and Heroes of the Realms came out. This is a D&D adult coloring book. I went to try to get it from my local Barnes & Noble the day it was supposed to come out. They did not have it. I'm waiting for them to call me, and I'm excited to get it. I like adult coloring books, and it's D&D, so there you go. Again, the Icons of the Realm minis came out. You can see right here, powered by Snap App, a bunch of the different minis that they have. There's some really cool ones, like these ones. Helena Nostrum, she's got this cool like hook on a chain with these kind of pink lightning coming off of her arms. What's also really cool is they have multiple versions of the different minis. Like, see this Cloud Giant with the scimitar? There's also this Cloud Giant with the spear, and you can see the size of a regular mini compared to him. And then again, there are the different types of minis with different weapons. There's different fire giants, as you saw. I also did an unboxing. You can go ahead and check on our channel. I'll leave the link in the description below. I got my Extra Life donation stuff when I donated to the Wizards of the Coast team's page. I donated to get these minis, so I got 4 of those minis, and all the money went to help kids in need. And then I did a little unboxing to show you that, and the cool like stickers and stuff that they included as well. Also, sorry if I'm looking very white and kind of washed out. I got a new monitor and it is very bright, so that might be why you're seeing that. Role reversal, James Wilson went and visited, from VentureBeat, went and visited the Wizards of the Coast office. So recently, Jason Wilson from VentureBeat visited the Wizards of the Coast office, spent the day with the D&D team. During his visit, he's supposed to interview me, Nathan Stewart, senior director, but I turned the tables on him and sprung a series of well-crafted questions. Those were his air quotes, his way. So basically, they swapped roles, and Nathan Stewart interviewed Jason Wilson from VentureBeat rather than the other way around. So Jason started playing in 1983. The year TV series MASH went off the air, meaning he needed something new to fill that time slot, so he started playing D&D. Roughly how many player characters have you had over the years? He's usually the DM, so maybe 5 or 6 since 1983. That's... I feel you on that one. I've had maybe a little bit less than that in the 12-ish years that I've been playing. It's the coolest thing one of your PCs ever did. Talked about a game with 2 different characters, a priest and a fighter. Whenever the fighter died, the priest would cast Animate Dead so they could both finish the adventure. Then they'd go to the next town and find someone to resurrect him. Especially given Jason's description of himself as someone who doesn't play too many characters, I thought this was a great... this answer was great. or a plot to a potential new D&D sitcom. And don't worry, legal team, I informed Jason that any ideas shared with me in the building become properties of Hasbro, and he would be credited with special thanks to the minions who made this possible. If D&D were an Olympic sport, what would the event look like? Had some ideas. He knew it would be one of the slower-paced events at the Olympics. It was obviously be performed indoors, and play the environment would be a geek chic table set up with painted minis and a panel of judges: Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford, and a third judge, probably Matt Mercer. Knowing that you have kids, what's your opinion at the correct age to for a child to watch the first watch Star Wars? At the age of 4, his answer is now age 6, and has another child already to take a second swing at it. As a geek dad, is an important topic. Having brave dads go before me and sharing their wisdom. So 6 is his thoughts on when your kids should first watch Star Wars. Yeah, I gotta say that's probably around the same time that I first watched Star Wars, and maybe a little bit less for my sister, because I was so into Star Wars that I made her watch it. Although it was probably right around there. Knowing that you have kids... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Starting with New Hope, yes. It's been argued that the A-Team is a loose spin-off of Dungeons & Dragons. In your opinion, how would the classes be? Baracus is a fighter. You would split hairs to push him towards Barbarian or some other melee type, but let's just agree fighter. You believe Face would be a bard. That also makes sense. Hannibal, with a bit of discussion, finally landed on a multi-class fighter rogue with some sort of swashbuckler background. And the hardest one, he said, would be Murdoch, but he believes him to be a priest of Ogma. Interesting choice, a cleric for Murdoch. Well, there's a link here. For those of you that have other opinions, I'd love to know your breakdown. What was your favorite thing we've done with D&D franchises over the years? He said the easy answer, Dungeon Master Guild, without hesitation. So, there you go. TwitchCon has already passed at the point of this video being out, but on October 1st, TwitchCon had the Waffle Crew, the folks that are doing Dice Camera Action. That's the Tuesday night playthrough of Curse of Strahd. This is Pro Jared, Commander Holly, Nate Wants to Battle, Chris Perkins, and Anna Prosser. They are all, they played live at TwitchCon, so that was their first time playing live. Chris Perkins, obviously, a veteran of that, so it's pretty cool for those guys. Ad block detected. Great. So this is part 1, I think, of the Forbes article we were talking about. This is all about D&D's resurgence. You know what? They're not letting me do it because they don't support ad block. Well, sorry, Forbes. You don't get mentioned here on my stream, or my video, then. Creating worlds and legacies with Dungeons and Dragons. Rob Thomas uses his ability to see the dark side, blah, 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 blah. These are just a lot of interesting articles that were posted on the Wizards of the Coast Facebook, so I'm just going through and grabbing these. Having not really read these ahead of time myself, I'm kind of going through them live. Probably should read these ahead of time, but I like to keep things candid, so we do it as we go. We'll scroll through. This is just like another inside D&D all about. You can see, look at that, 4th grade giant hunters. These are the sweet. I wish I had a pair of these. These Wizards of the Coast official D&D dice. You can see the kind of ampersand symbol here. Looks like that might be on the 20. This looks like this was the whole process of building the how to balance and create worlds for, looks like probably Storm King's Thunder based on what I'm seeing here. 4th grade giant hunters and all that. So yeah, and then hey, this Forbes article not blocked, strangely enough. D&D is a multi-generational story that has no end. The second part of my interview is the creators of D&D. We talk about past and future adventures, the most exciting parts of production, and how some of the biggest fans of D&D are making it right now. Since the launch of 5th edition, we've had a number of stories now, and what I try to do with each story is take this is Chris Perkins, something that has been in D&D lore and that is part of the history, and bring it forward. Nathan Stewart, not speaking specifically of Dragonlance, but the future of other realms, as we're always being very thoughtful about how we bring in this is getting good. We know which ones are the most popular, and we tend to be as thoughtful and deliberate about other settings as we have with Forgotten Realms. In the case of the giant sword for 5th edition, we found an ancient lore from an old book called Giantcraft. The idea of an ordning, it's sort of like the structure of giant society. In Storm King's Thunder, it gets shattered. That's the whole process of the premise of the story. Every book we release is a challenge because we're always learning something new each time. Basically, what I'm in this for is something about Greyhawk, something about Eberron, something about Dragonlance. Give us new campaign settings. Give us lore books like we used to get. I mean, I'm getting off base here, but 3.5, which again is what I'm going to reference since that's the only other thing I'm familiar with outside of 5th edition. I'm just looking at my books right up here, which again are right off screen for you guys. And I see all the various books of all the different supplemental things, all the complete series, Book of Vile Darkness, Book of Exalted Deeds, which I think would be cool to get into 5th edition, or an arms and armament type guide where you just have like a thing of weapons and cool items, or magic item compendium possibly. Dragonomicon, always solid, would have been a great release to go alongside Court of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, although those were the first books to come out, so I get that. But I'm looking at the Forgotten Realms stuff. So there's the Player's Guide to Faerun, the Forgotten Realms campaign guide, Faith and Pantheons, which is all about the gods of the Forgotten Realms, Magic of Faerun, Monsters of Faerun, Underdark, so that's a whole book about the Underdark in Forgotten Realms, Silver Marches, a region of the Forgotten Realms, Unapproachable East. Again, they had a book about the magic, the monsters, a thing for players, a thing for DMs, and then a book about every different region. Give us stuff like this. I mean, I know that was 3.5 and this is 5e, but give us more stuff like that. We get like little... We get the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, which gave us great information about the Sword Coast, but that gives us nothing about the South. We don't have anything about Fae, Cormyr, or anything really concrete about the Underdark. We have campaign settings like Out of the Abyss, which gives us some knowledge about things we might need to know if we go in those specific areas. But how about like like Curse of Strahd? This is one that I just got into a big conversation about 2 days ago, yesterday. Barovia is such an interesting concept. The area, the people, just everything about it is amazing. And like there were several tomes and books in 2nd edition, 3rd edition, not sure about 4th, but probably, about Barovia as a whole. You know, different areas, different creatures, different modules for different fights, and just lore about it. And what do we have in 5th edition? We have Curse of Strahd. It is a book that gives you a, you know, it's a whole campaign, mind you. So, you know, you got a book about that thick. The beginning is a little bit of intro information, but the end you have magic items, you have new monsters, you have linking to other campaigns, you have maps. Then you have your background information about Barovia, and then the rest is the campaign to get you from 1 to 10 or whatever it is. The whole campaign, that's a start to finish. You start just getting to Barovia, and you finish with potentially beating Strahd in one book. So all of your lore and the whole adventure is in one book. I mean, you could release a different Barovia-themed book every October, and I'm sure it'd sell like crazy. Just give us content and stuff to make our own adventures rather than just one book that takes us start to finish. And don't get me wrong, I realize that people need that. Hell, I mean, we're in the process of filming and doing a Curse of Strahd playthrough ourselves for, to upload to our YouTube channel because you guys asked for it. So we're doing that. And I do like the pre-written campaigns. I think they're great for new and old DMs alike, people that are not particularly familiar, again, in this instance, with Barovia or the Forgotten Realms. This is a great way to get you a little bit of intro to towns and places and names, and a little bit of lore, but you don't get a lot of lore in a book that also takes you basically to defeating the one person that makes Barovia Barovia. If at the end of that he gets defeated, well, then there's really no lore to, I don't know. Like I said, you start there, you finish the campaign, and you win, basically. You beat Strahd, you win, essentially. But they can only cram so much lore and interesting content in one book. Things like the DM's Guild give you tons of expanded material on that, which is great. But I feel like they're just missing the boat on a lot of this, and I get it. They want to avoid, I'm really off topic here, but they really want to avoid book bloat, something they had, and again, I can also attest by looking at my 3-5 books that I've got up there. They were having a new book, maybe even 2 new books a month. So by the end of it, you had just a stack of books, and if you had a DM that allowed everything, if you wanted to make a truly powerful min-maxed character, if that was your thing, you had to be like bookmarking thousands of different books to get a feat from this book and an item from this book and an alternative class feature from this book and all this stuff. So they wanted to go the other way. And I mean, even did this with 4th edition. There were a bunch of books too. But I feel like they went the opposite, too far in the opposite direction, to the point where 5th edition has been out for over 2 years. And if you want to count core crunchy books that are lore and useful content for you, that are not campaign settings with a little bit of added stuff to it, you're looking at 4 books. 4 books in 2 years. You've got Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master Guide, and Monster Manual, which I mean, they don't even technically count. They're the core books that you need to play the game, and they weren't even released at the same time. They were systematic releases over time. So you got the core books, and the only other book that has actual, official, approved content is the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. Although I will concede that they did release the Elemental Evil Player's Companion, but that was just a PDF online, not a physical printed book for most of the world. I mean, in a couple of instances, you could get the kind of soft cover printed copy of that. But there's a lot of people that don't even know that that exists because it wasn't a published book that they could see in a store. So that's a whole nother story. But maybe just go that route then. Give us I think a quarterly book wouldn't be bad. I mean, they're releasing these campaign settings 1 to 2 a year, it seems. Although this year we've only had the release of Storm King's Thunder. Although we are going to get Volo's Guide in a month from now. So I guess that's another book this year, which will be crunchy content, new monsters, new races, things like that. So that, I will concede that. But that'll be 4, 5, maybe 6 if you count Elemental Evil in 2 years. I think a good book a quarter is not an unreasonable expectation. But I could be wrong. They're taking a lot of focus on 5e to not bloat the system. But you're releasing Unearthed Arcana articles once a month, so who knows. They're not actually asking questions, they're just giving you answers, basically. This is basically, I guess, how they got started in Dungeons and Dragons. And then this is a video about the resurgence of D&D. Again, D&D has been here the whole time. People, I mean, internet forums and things aside, have been passionate. You can see there's clearly a passion. I mean, 5th edition exists because 4th edition and 3rd edition were successful. I wouldn't necessarily call it a resurgence. Again, I would call this just putting a spotlight on it. It's been here, it's been played for the entirety since it's been released. It's just with the popularity of internet culture and streaming of games and things like that, there's a spotlight shown on it so people see that it's out there. Again, I don't want to say that this is all entirely contributed by Matt Mercer and Critical Role, which, I mean, after last Thursday's episode with over 30,000 views for that episode, I mean, that's a pretty big viewership for a Dungeons and Dragons live stream. But, like, Matt Mercer and that whole group were playing for 2 years before they started streaming. They were playing because they wanted to have fun and were playing the game to play it. Then they got offered the opportunity to play it and stream it for Geek and Sundry, and they did. They're playing more frequently, but they weren't playing it with the hopes of becoming a live stream or to foster, be part of this D&D resurgence. They were playing because they were playing, and then they got this opportunity, so they took it, and now a spotlight is shown on it. Not a resurgence, just a bringing it into the mainstream media, if you ask me. Lastly, Wolfgang Baur, the head of Kobolds of the Kobold Press, is on the D&D podcast this past week to talk about the Tome of Beasts. I am a big fan of the Tome of Beasts. You've seen me talk about it for a while. I don't have my copy down here, otherwise I'd hold it up. But it's a great, unofficial 5th edition expansion to give you lots of new monsters, at least till Volo's releases. I do happen to have right there in front of me, though, the Book of Lairs. This is a Kobold Press that I got at the same time. These are fully statted out and mapped out adventure modules to get you from 1 to 14. Not exactly straight through, but, you know, great quality stuff there. So that would be worth checking out. And let's see. Chris and Matt discuss the relationship between Volo and Elminster. If you're, again, unfamiliar with Forgotten Realms lore, and you might not know who Elminster is, or Volo for that matter, Volo's Guide to Monsters is coming out, so if that name intrigues you, you might want to check this one out. Or at least go to the Forgotten Realms Wikipedia and type in Volo and see what you get. But yeah, anyway guys, that's pretty much it for me for this week. So if you click right up here, this is Know Your Role. This is my weekly Tuesday night stream. This Tuesday, the 4th? The 4th is our 50th episode, and the following week will be our 1-year anniversary. It's pretty exciting for us to see that we've been here for, 50 episodes and a year's worth of time with a couple of breaks we had there around the holidays. This past week, we saw the return of Dwayna "The Rock" Johnson as she helped the party gain entrance into Candlekeep. Right here in the middle is the Kickstarter spotlight for this week. This is all about Dungeons on Demand. Speaking of adventures that get you from 1 to 14, Dungeons on Demand is an adventure series put up by Dan Coleman that if you pick up all 4 dungeons, this is the volume 4 on Kickstarter, if you pick up volumes 1 through 4, it is enough adventures to get you from levels 1 to 20. And now that they've reached their stretch goal, now you have a level 20 adventure as well. So if you didn't have a lot of creativity, or you didn't really want to put a lot of thought into things and just have everything kind of outlined for you, your whole thing could just be linking these adventures together, and you could get your party starting at level 1 all the way through the end to level 20, and even have something to do once they hit 20. As well, this is going to have cool, interesting new monsters that he's created, as well as cool new magic items. So it's definitely worth checking out. And the DMs Guild Spotlight this week, I did the Taraki, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Gambit, basically. You are a magic user that uses a deck of cards called a power pack, and you charge your cards with magical, not kinetic energy, but magical energy, and then you use them to activate your cantrips up through 9th level spells. It's really cool. There's a lot of cool concepts, but you don't know because you have to draw your cards, and based on what cards you have in your hand determines what kind of spells you're able to cast. Then you choose a type of game, whether it be solitaire or euchre or poker, and those will further augment the way playing the style of games that those games are allows you to then alter the way the spells are cast. It's really cool and it's unique, and I think it'd be really good for a player who's been playing for a long time and wants something challenging where they don't know what they're going to be able to do every turn. They have to kind of adapt and play on the fly. So, anyway guys, if you like that, any of the sounds of those videos, this video, the sound of my voice, or any of that stuff, you can go ahead and click right down here, to subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much. We're approaching 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which is very exciting. So obviously we only stream once a week, although I am looking to change that with the ideas of some other, probably non-D&D related streams, just some random video game streams here and there, or possibly adventure and encounter kind of creative streams in the future. But if you like the YouTube stuff, I do release several videos once a week. Again, there are all of these here, our weekly stream, the Kickstarter stuff, the DM stuff. There will be a couple other videos coming out over the course of this week. We did a review, a group of us did a review of the Ranger Revised. I've been wanting to release this much sooner to the release of the Revised Ranger by Wizards of the Coast, like right after it came out. However, I thought it better to actually try to attempt to play with it a little bit, which I did, or I had players play with it. And then the three of us sat down, or the four of us actually, from the Tuesday night regular stream, sat down to discuss it and talk about what our thoughts are, whether it's OP, whether it's underpowered, whether or not we'd actually play it, and why. So if you're interested, be on the lookout for that. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you soon.